Okay, firstly, to begin my presentation, I would like to pay my greatest respect to the teacher and very good morning. Today, I'm going to do the presentation about the impact of COVID-19 on Indonesia's industry. So let's move to my contents. Here is my contents. So I have four main points to talk about. The first one is introduction. The second is the impacts of the impacts of industry in Indonesia, which is agriculture industry, automotive industry, and transport industry. And the third main point is about how the government respond to COVID-19 outbreak. And the last one is conclusion. So let's move to the introduction first. So the COVID-19 pandemic and the associated containment measures to cover pandemic and disruption to globe. In Indonesia, the epidemic expanded rapidly since the first local cases were identified early March. Okay, so let's move to the second main part, which is about the impacts on industry in Indonesia. So the COVID-19 pandemic is now beginning to spread to the world of industry as well as Indonesia industry. So the spread of this massive virus will slow down the economic growth. So there are three main industries that got affected by the COVID-19, which are agriculture industry. The COVID-19 pandemic has significantly impacted every part of human life, both economic, including agriculture. Okay, continue. So it has affected all sectors of life, including farmer household. The implementation of social distancing and others initiated by the local government has influenced farmers' lifestyle in rural areas. As a country where many people still rely on agriculture, Indonesia faces a complicated situation if the pandemic continues because food production will be affected. And Indonesia announced its first COVID-19 cases in March 2020. In response to this, the government applied limitations on economic and non-economic activities. These actions slowed the commercial and industrial sectors, and many people lost their jobs, with middle and low-income citizens being the hardest hit. The situation presents a high risk for food security due to the decrease in purchasing power and food supply chains not being able to run. Okay, so let's move to the second. We talk about the automotive industry. So the national automotive industry was affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. The impact is in the forms of decreased motor demand in Indonesia. The numbers of scale of 4 or more wheeled vehicles in January 2020 was 80.4 thousand units, down 1.1% from the previous period. Alright, so then in February 2020, sales were 79.5 thousand units, let it down 3.1% from the previous period. The impacts of COVID-19 outbreak was greatly felt by the national automotive industry. The conditions of industry sector was considered the worst during the COVID-19 pandemic that occurred in Indonesia. Let's move on to the third. We talk about the transport industry. Logistics using land transportation services are still the important part of transportation services industry, with around 90% of logistics in Indonesia involving land transportation of goods. Okay, so continue. One of the business sectors directly affected by the government's policies is transportation. Besides the government's effort to flatten the COVID-19 curve, players asked the government to formulate to suppress COVID-19 impacts on transportation business. There are at least three transportation business as association in land, sea, and air transportation that have met the demand. For companies or industries based on export and import due to lack of supply, there is currently a government policy that prohibits companies from carrying out import-export activities temporarily. Import-based companies or industries also suffer due to lack of supply production due to a number of policies that prohibit import of goods temporarily, and several other sectors, including tourism, transportation, such as plants and sea to education. Education also feel the impact. So let's move to the number 3. We're going to talk about how the government responds to COVID-19 outbreak. So it's not only Indonesia, but the government all around the world, they really try to find the best solution to uh, prevent the spread of COVID-19. So the government of Indonesia, through the task force for quickly of response to COVID-19, has developed nation response and mitigation plan for COVID-19. Okay, specifically, the plan has following objectives. So to limit transmission of COVID-19 outbreak, reduce subsequent infections in vulnerable communities and health workers. Early detection, isolation, and early treatment, and implementation of pharmaceutical and non-pharmaceutical measures for the COVID-19 outbreak. Identification of all resource requirements related to COVID-19 response, and maintaining public order and security as well as social and economic stability during the COVID-19 response. So let's move on to the conclusion. So the COVID-19 is unprecedented only in Indonesia, but worldwide. Government efforts to control the COVID-19 pandemic remains a work in progress, and COVID-19 continues to spread across the world following a trajectory that is difficult to predict. However, still in some countries process the jobs for their people in order to fulfill their needs in daily life. Moreover, all government established the new regulations in order to prevent from the spread of virus to save the life. So, all right, it's come to the end, and here's my source. Here's my references that I got from the internet. Yes, and thank you very much for watching my video, and I hope teacher really enjoys my video. And thank you. Have a nice one.